Hi, welcome back to Dow Twine. I'm Dave. So we got some dominant seventh arpeggio work going on here. End of last week on YouTube, I had kind of a one chord self-teaching, practice approach to triads, and we also used the A key or chord. We just did it on that one chord. This is going to be similar to that. In that intro that you just saw, real short intro, and I did a lot of jamming around to prepare for this, and then I had a lesson, so there was some time in between. And when I went back just now and I looked at all the stuff that I had recorded for that intro, I just picked out a real short segment of it because I thought, okay, a lot of this just, I'm just kind of practicing and rambling myself and so forth, and you all don't really need to see that. So the part that I plucked out, I felt really exemplified, the main idea here. And I did go up to the four chord. I think I went something like, it was a kind of a different tempo and stuff or whatever, right? And some of the other jamming around that I was doing, I did like a whole 12 bar thing, and then I would, do some other arrangement or whatever. And that's good. And that's good stuff. And that is kind of where this is headed, because all the chords could be addressed as dominant seventh chords in a 12 bar blues like that. But before you get to the kind of, arranging the whole 12 bar thing and coming up with nice ways to go from chord to chord and the other melodic elements involved in that. The real foundational skill here that's essential for before all of that can really start happening is having these arpeggios under your fingers and in your ear. Okay, so that's what this is about. And like we often do on here, I'm going to show you, some examples. Some of them will be kind of the more, self-evident examples, right? Stuff that you're going to recognize pretty quickly. And that's good, because once you get it in your ear, then you can kind of move out in different directions and around the neck and play it in higher octaves, and maybe, hopefully, come up with some shapes that you're not familiar with, right? But that you can hear and refer back to the stuff that you are certain of. You can anchor it back to this. Well, right? And that's the real work, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm supporting you doing that self-teaching, on your own, and setting you on a course to do that, right? This is very important. So, but let me give you the tools that you need to do that, right? So we're going to do mostly, now a few days ago, end of last week on YouTube, I did a video that was just did the root, third, and fifth for an A, right? We just treated them as triad tones, So in this case, we're using 4 tones for the chord: the root, the major third, the fifth, and the flat 7. Okay, so for A, those notes are going to be, there's an A7, root A, major third C sharp, fifth E, and flat 7 G. Now notice I'm putting it in between 2 octaves. So when I play the chord tone, I'm going right on up to the next octave. And part of the reason for that is it gives you a nice, even feeling of four, if you're in a four based time signature, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, da, da. Right. So we don't want to be, kind of out in left field with some kind of, complex rhythmic stuff here right away, right? Just, you know, get it to where you just want to hear those chord tones, and you'll get so used to that sequence, ascending and descending, that you'll be able to self-correct and explore and find other places to make those shapes, right? Make those sounds, rather. They would be different shapes depending on what you do. Here's one example of that, starting from the exact same location. Okay, so that's just to let you know what this kind of work is about and how it's right there. But if you're not reminded or shown, like, oh, okay, yeah, wait a second, there's three moves right there just taking off from right here, right? And that's going to occur all over the neck, right? Don't try to memorize the whole matrix in one night, but just keep that in mind, right? What I like to do is, instead of focusing on every possible thing from that one origin, is I like to do kind of a routine, where I'm moving around, and then, you know, that's just my preference. Then let's say I got up here and I was going, then I might say, okay, well, wait a second. And then I'll kind of stop and do that. But I don't like practice like all five of those right next to each other, because it just doesn't sound as musical to me. So what I like to do is I like to switch out which chord tone I'm starting on as sort of my ear training. And here's what that looks like for me: is I'll go root, right? And there's a little routine that I did write out for you. Okay, here's the first part of it. All right, so that's root to root, kind of up and back, then back up, then up an octave, and up and back, right? Do whatever you want, make up your own routines, but there's a little example, right? And then I'll move to starting on the third. Right? I just like that climbing sound, that there's a little bit of difference. Then when I go back to the root, everybody's brain is operating a little differently on this. That really mortars it in for me. I hear that those were the same notes in sequence, but there's a different, you know, um, um, uh, gestalt to it. There's a different, what would you call it? Component part of that larger module that you can really hear in a musical way. So. Then I will, combine a couple of them. Like, okay, well, I got two things going on there now, but they're the same thing. But when I think of them as kind of the two component parts, I get like better shaping. I hit a different note there, going down more of like a Mixolydian scale. It wasn't a chord tone, but. Then the way that I kind of really mortar it in is I play like a blues scale lick or something in there with it. I integrate it. This is how I practice. All right. So there's some other stuff going on there, right? Don't worry about that so much right now. But whatever happens for you naturally when you're practicing these arpeggio shapes, let it happen, right? Especially letting your pentatonic shapes, kind of, uh, you know, meld in and around and with those triad shapes, okay? And that's really going to get chord tones in there, but also other things from the pentatonic scale and stuff like that. So we did a root to root, a third to third. How about a fifth to fifth? Our fifth is E. So remember, the notes are always going to be the same sequence. So if I start on the fifth, my next note will be a flat seven, then a root, then third, then fifth. Well, that has a totally different flavor to me. And so sometimes you might think like, well, this is just kind of rearranging the furniture. But yeah, but it matters, right? And it when you're playing and you take off from these different starting points, it's a different sound, and it also gets you to other positions and things that you wouldn't maybe, you don't end up kind of repeating the same maneuvers all the time, right? Or if you are repeating them as a result of very successful practice, you have a large variety of them, right? So the listening ear is constantly being moved around when they listen to you play, right? And here's what I like about this one. It's well, they all have the same kind of nature and potential, but there's some shapes that just messing around with this last night and this morning that I came up with that I probably don't do that often, but that I should. And I really started, doing some practicing myself. So I did one, starting from there, I was like, well, that's kind of, it's almost just right out of that pentatonic scale. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I really like this. Because it kind of helps you change positions, right? Okay, so there I went on a little, goose chase or whatever, right? But that's just to let you know that, go ahead and follow your ear. If you hear it fitting into your blues or something, go ahead and follow that. But just come back to, your routine. So in that case, I'm going fifth, root, or sorry, fifth, flat seven, E to G, to the root, to A, to the major third, and then the fifth, right? Where's some other ones? Just so now you can see that, even down here, just that root to root. What if I went? That's nice because that makes the transition between this shape and Had to look. So this, slow it down. But once you get one under your fingers, expand it. Take it down. Go back. Oh, wait a minute. Now that's going to connect to third, root, flat 7, 5, third, root, right? See, these are sequences that maybe you're already doing this and that's great, but maybe not, right? And you want to get used to that. Oh, that sound is the same sound as if I went. Okay, mix your blues scale in there, right? I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to, keep going and getting more complex and adding more stuff, right? That was a good little nuts and bolts, version of how to get into this stuff. And hopefully I did, some decent uh, uh, exhibits there of how you can really put that into musical phrasing and get into a real bluesy feel with it, right? And this is without even putting in our regular bends and our just kind of pentatonic blues scale playing, right? So you can imagine how diverse and how much more stylized your sound will get once you put all of that together, right? Like I said, I don't want to overwhelm you with all of that stuff at once. Okay, let me know how this goes. Appreciate all of you. There's been several people sign up lately. I'll be talking to you if I haven't already reached out to you. Appreciate it. See you next week.